Hello and welcome to today's lesson. My name is Rodolfo Novello and I'd like to introduce you to the MVC routing mechanism. In the previous lesson, we saw what ASP.NET MVC is and its basic components, the model, the view, and the controller. We learned that the controller is the arbiter between the data exposed by the model and the way that data is presented to the end user by the view. The system must decide which controller to invoke based on the end user's URL. This process is called routing. Let me start with the routeconfig.cs class file, which is located under the app_start folder. This is the definition of the restful URL that is going to control our application. You can see that the URL is separated into three sections. The first one is the controller, the second one is the action within that controller, and the third one, which is an optional parameter, is the ID of the item that we're going to be working on, depending on the action. In the case of the index, which is the first, all of the components of the database. Okay. So, as you can see, if we were to run the application, you see that the URL says that the default for the controller is home, and the default for the action is index, which means that if we don't specify anything, it is going to default to these two values. Let's see if that is true. Okay, so we can see that we are indeed in the home page, and we can verify that by writing home, and since the action defaults to index, it will take us to the same place, and if we specify index, it will take us still to the same place. Okay. If we were to specify any other action like edit, it doesn't exist, so it returns a 404. Okay. Now, one interesting thing about the routing is that we can lock our application to only one controller. If we were to remove the word controller here, we are removing the ability to decide which controller we want to access. In this sample, we only have one, and but I will create another one so we can see how it works. But look at this. If we remove the possibility of writing the controller name, it will always default to home. So there's no exiting, there's no accessing any of the other controllers that may be part of the application. Let's see what happens when we try to modify the URL in a way that it doesn't like. Okay, so right here we are in the home page. If we were to say home, even though it exists, it gives us a 404, which means we are not allowed to specify the controller that we want to work on. However, index will take us to the right place. Okay, that we can see here. Action is fine, is the first one with a default of controller, default controller of home. Okay, let's really quickly create another controller that we're going to call test. Okay, remember we need to suffix the name of our controller with the word controller. And we're going to use a template that will include empty read and write actions. So in a couple seconds, it has created a controller that has several action result methods, index, details, create, for mostly CRUD type events. Okay, so in this case, we don't have, if we were to run the application and try to go to the test controller, we don't have any views associated with this controller. So let's right click on the word index and add a view. Right here, the name defaults to index, which is, we want to leave it alone. And there are some templates online that that you may want to use if you want to make your life a little easier. And let's use the Razor syntax. Okay, so let's say okay. And you can see that the IDE created a new view called test and an index file inside of that view. Okay, this file doesn't do anything, but we can actually, let's right here in the body, let's add something so we can verify that we're at the correct place. Let's do a header one. Hello, this is test index, and let's run the application. Since our default route calls for the controller to be home, actually, you know what, we're never going to be able to get there. Let me return this to its okay controller. Let me run it again. So the controller is going to be home, the action is going to be index, and we want to navigate to the test controller, the index view of the test controller. So here we go. Let me close the other ones. So this is home. Now if we were to type test, this is the test index. Okay, of course if we add the word index, it will still be there. It will be exactly the same place. Okay, and now we can always go back to home, okay, and navigate that way. Our default router is not keeping us from navigating through to any of the controllers that are available to us. However, now let's change this to test. Okay, so we can see that now our default is going to be test. Let's see if it is true. Okay, so it went straight into the test page, which is what we expected it to do. Okay, so now let's do the same thing that we did before. Let's remove the controller, and of course we won't be able to do anything else other than what the test controller allows us to do. So we won't be able to go anywhere else. Like, let's say home, we get a 404. Okay, okay, so this is it for this video, and we'll look a little deeper into what we can do with MVC in the next video. Thank you very much.